And welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amy Wolf. I'm the program director here at the Osterville Village Library, and it is my pleasure to host Dr. Kumara Sidhartha for a conversation about his book, All My Secrets, Messages of Health from Your Body Decoded, and the Menstrual Health Manual, Food RX for PMS. Food prescription for PMS. In his work, Dr. Sidhartha explores an idea that is both simple and profound, that our bodies are constantly communicating with us. Through symptoms, sensations, and everyday signals, our bodies offer messages about balance, health, and the way we live. This afternoon, we'll have the opportunity to hear about ideas behind the book, the stories that shaped it, and the insights Dr. Sidhartha hopes readers will carry with them. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kumara Sidhartha.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Amy, for the introduction. Thanks to also Cindy, who is a director here, and the board of trustees of this library to make these programs available for everybody, and having me here as well. Today is International Women's Day, so happy International Women's Day for you and for the women and girls in your lives. In honor of that book is available for free, the Menstrual Health book. It's available, you can download. Actually, we will move that poster there, and if you have anybody in your life, and if you are still going to be benefiting from understanding how diet can improve comfort in menstruation without PMS, without PMDD, you can download the book for free today. You can also go to my Instagram and download the book starting tomorrow for a few days, and that's just in honor of today's importance being Women's Day. So I'm going to move that poster later on so that we can actually access it. You don't want to put, it's not like an obstacle course here to get to that QR code. So let's see. I'm going to try to do this in 45 minutes to allow for some questions for you all. So we'll touch on. First, we'll go on certain areas that is covered in this book, All My Secrets, and then I'll come to the Menstrual Health book. That's my website, my Instagram. You can follow information there. I want to start with this question. What can we learn from those who are immune to cancer, right? So it's a question, but it's also a statement. It's a major statement I'm making, an assertion I'm making, saying that there are folks out there who are immune to cancer. Right? And the idea is, what can we learn from them so that we can adapt our lives to align with what is happening in their lives so that we don't get cancer, right? And so there are two groups here. One is among all the mammals, including humans, elephants have the least risk for cancer. We'll kind of look at that again when we dive into it. And then among humans, a group of individuals who have something called Laron syndrome, which is a genetic change in their body, they also are immune to get cancer. It is impossible for them to get cancer. So the idea here is to kind of see what can we learn from it. But this is kind of the fundamental question is, there are groups who don't get cancer. What can we learn from them? This is one question which I want to start with. And this is the other question I want to start with, which is, how many of you love being told what to do and what not to do? None of you. I don't. Myself don't like to be told what to do and what not to do. So I am in a kind of a dilemma here where I get to know all these fascinating facts, and I want to shout it from the top of a mountain to everybody to say, do this, who won't get cancer? But at the same time, we also know this. Nobody wants to be told what to do, what not to do. So I'm kind of leading up to saying why I structured this book in a way that I am not speaking in the book directly to you. The book is set up as a dialogue that is being observed by the reader. There are 9 characters in this book. Those are my former patients. and their stories with fictitious names given to them. In the setting of the plot is that each of them are having a moment of having a conversation with their own body. They're just starting to listen to what the body is saying, and there's an inner conversation going on, and there's a dialogue, and that's what you're reading for each of those characters, 9 characters. And the body is telling what it likes, what it doesn't like. So you as the reader are kind of gleaning whatever stuff you want to pick up from that dialogue. So maybe I'm not telling you what to do, but you're just observing it, right? That's the idea of why the book is structured as a conversation, and this also makes it easy to. It's a kind of an information book, so I wanted to try to make an attempt to make it a little easier flow and easier to read, more like a conversational style rather than you're just reading like an essay report. So I want to kind of share another major study or information that we now know that we have a lifestyle prescription to reverse mild dementia. It's been proven with very strong scientific research that was published in 2024 in June, showing that lifestyle changes, doing a combination of this, can actually reverse mild dementia, which has been, we have been searching for a magic bullet for treating dementia for decades, throwing billions and billions of dollars at it, and to realize that it's been just within the reach of every individual to not only prevent but actually reverse it is fascinating. It should be in the headlines all, right, since 2024. But anyway, here we are. So what was in the prescription, or what was the intervention they used in this research to reverse this mild dementia is using diet, using physical activity, stress management, social interactions. They actually used like Zoom meetings 3 times a week. And they did throw in a bunch of supplements, and some of it is an overkill, I think. Based on what we know, one could get from eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, for example. You're going to get a ton of vitamin C from it. You're going to get a ton of magnesium. So I don't know why they had to add these as a supplement, but I think sometimes when they do research, they want to make sure that nothing gets missed in how they're trying to show evidence. So they're adding these kind of things redundantly, I think. So anyway, I think the plant diet, wholesome, not processed. Majority of the calories coming from carbohydrates. There's so much confusion, fear about carbohydrates, and that as if it is the worst thing out there. And the confusion comes from lumping all the carbohydrates into one bad pile, like a pastry or a sugary candy is seen as a carbohydrate, yes. At the same time, a high fiber vegetable, leafy greens and fruits and whole grains, legumes and beans and lentils, they are also put in the same bucket as carbohydrates. And there's so much fear out there about carbs, adding to weight and diabetes. There's so much misconception about that. So, but when you see wholesome food, unprocessed, with a lot of fiber in it, actually makes a big difference when we add more of it in our diet. In fact, in this study, 68% of the calories coming from such carbohydrates, right? Aerobic activity, 30 minutes daily, and some mild stretching, strength training 3 times a week. 3 times a week of Zoom meetings, social interaction, daily stretches, or any type of stress management, and then these supplements. This is some of the graphs that are published in that study showing how you can actually, this is the intervention group, this is the placebo group, and you can see the difference. Things are moving in the opposite direction. This means that the dementia is reducing in this group. So coming back to this question about cancer, what are we learning from these groups is that one, for elephants, there's something called P53 gene. So we're all born with genes that prevents cancer. Our body is an amazing machine. It has everything in place to make sure we remain healthy for the longest time we can. It's just what we do, what we get exposed to that breaks it, right? So one of the things we have in place is genes that are there to prevent cancer. So we're born with genes, BRCA gene, BRCA gene for breast cancer, ovarian cancer, things we have heard of. That's a gene that is there to prevent breast cancer and prevent ovarian cancers, right? When that gene becomes flawed, that when there's a small break in the gene, those are the individuals, when they do a genetic testing, they'll say, oh, my test came back positive for BRCA gene. That means they had a small glitch in that gene, which is supposed to be protecting them. Now that protection is lost. So now they are more at risk for breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So that's an example of a gene that is there to protect us. Similarly, this P53 genes is another protective gene we have. It protects many of the gut cancers, including colon cancers. Elephants have 20 pairs of them. So even if an elephant gets, one or two of them gets knocked off, they have so many backup copies of it to protect them. And that is now being understood as the reason why elephants, among all mammals, have the least cancer risk. Humans, we have only one set of those P53 genes. Only one. If it's gone, we are vulnerable for these cancers, right? So that, and then that P53 gene also takes a hit from two things. Not eating enough fruits and vegetables, colorful, antioxidant-rich fruits and vegetables. It gives a boost for these P53 genes that we have. We have only one set from birth. And also excess animal protein, whether it's white meat, red meat, increases. It also excess red and white meat makes this P53 genes have breaks in them. These breaks are technically called mutations, which is basically a gene break, and that becomes a positive test when we do a gene testing to see, these patients have a flawed P53 gene. So diet makes a difference. And if you look at elephants, first of all, they got 20 pairs, and they're also not eating red meat, white meat, and they eat leafy greens all the time. So they got all the perfect scenario going on for them in terms of what they're choosing to eat, what they don't eat by nature, and the amount of copies they have. There are 20 pairs. So even one or two gets broken. Let's say the elephant is in a zoo somewhere, and there's all toxic chemicals there that is in their food that is given to the elephant. Maybe one or two genes gets broken, but still it doesn't. Even domesticated elephants have less cancer, not only the ones that are in the jungle. So that's not that. People with Laron syndrome, they don't get cancer because genetically their growth hormone is not working, so they are all dwarfs. They grow as dwarfs, right? And the silver lining in their lives is that they never get cancer. And the reason is that they cannot make their growth hormone work because they don't have this catalyst, this particular chemical in their body that makes the growth hormone work well. It's called insulin-like growth factor because when we look at it chemically, it resembles insulin to a degree. And this IGF-1 is the one that will allow the growth hormone to work so that a little kid grows up into an adult human being, right? The bones, muscles, all grows, all the organs grow because IGF-1 makes the growth hormone do its job. In these individuals, they cannot make IGF-1 genetically, so they don't grow into an adult size. They are dwarfs, but they also never get cancer because they don't have IGF-1. So what is the connection for IGF-1 and cancer is when we have excess levels of IGF-1 level. insulin-like growth factor, especially when you're an adult, we're not going to keep on growing in both directions. So when we have excess IGF-1 levels, it starts to grow tumors, grow cancers. So excess IGF-1 level is a cancer risk. For these individuals, they never get cancer because they can't make any IGF-1. And diet has a huge role. Again, excess animal protein consumption increases IGF-1 levels way more than what we need, and it increases the risk of cancer. So this is an example of looking at groups that are succeeding and learning from them and applying it to our lifestyle, right? So that's just one example. These are kind of the 7 steps that I described in my book on how to prevent cancer. So we'll just try to cover as much as we can in that. First of all, remember I told you about the DNA breaks that happens, mutations, the glitch, the flaw in the genes. That is the first beginning step when somebody starts to get cancer cell. So if you know somebody, they were told they have cancer. At a cellular level, if you go back to, look at the trail of how their cancer started, at the very first step, we have a broken gene. That's the first step. So if we need to prevent cancer, we need to make sure the DNA breaks, the gene breaks don't happen. And even if they do happen, they are repaired right away. They're patched up right away. That's like 2 steps you're seeing, 2 or more than 2 steps. So the first one is antioxidants. Antioxidants are colorful things in fruits and vegetables and other things like tea and cacao, things like that. Like green tea, for example, has antioxidants. Cacao is one of the highest in antioxidants, even more than many vegetables. These are called antioxidants because they work against oxidants. Antioxidants. And oxidants are high energy molecules that are inside our cells that break the genes, that breaks the DNA. Remember we talked about the very first step in cancer starting is the break. That is done by these oxidants, which are high energy, kind of a rogue molecules inside the cells. I call the bull in the china shop in the book. So these bulls in the china shop, they are basically breaking down things inside your cell, they break the DNA. How do you make the bulls quiet? Is by adding antioxidants. Colorful fruits and vegetables on your plate, green tea and cacao, things like that. That's leafy greens. That's the first step to stop the breaks. The other step is to make sure, the bulls, we got this rogue high energy molecule that is the bulls in the china shop inside the cell. And then we have this fragile china dish, which is our DNA. You don't want them to be together because they're going to break it, the china dish. So excess protein, whether it's animal protein or plant protein, doesn't matter. Excess protein plays matchmaker, and it brings the high energy rogue bull closer to the glass DNA. We don't want them to be together because it's going to break it. But high protein, excess protein, regardless whether it's plant or animal, is going to bring them together. We don't want that. So reducing excess protein in general, not overdoing protein in general, whether it is your beans or whether it is your steak, is a good thing in general, not overdoing it beyond what we need, because that will bring those 2 things together to break it, exploits. The third thing we are looking at is naturally occurring chemicals in plants, in vegetables and fruits and leafy greens. They patch up the broken DNA. So every cell we have has a little tailor sitting there and sewing up the broken DNAs. Every time we all have, if we live in an industrialized society, we get exposed to chemicals, other kind of stuff. And so we all have little breaks happening in our DNA. So, all of us have maybe hundreds of cells floating around every day. And every day, our body will fix it up. We have little tailors sewing up, patching up daily. every day, all year, for all of us. If there's so much of these DNA breaks happening, then the patching up mechanism can get exhausted. And at one day that cannot happen, and that cell becomes a cancer cell. And if you think about, why do the entire population did not get cancer out there? Only some are getting cancer. That's because in the others, the patch up mechanism is just patching up the broken DNA, right? So how do you boost the patch up mechanism? The repair mechanism is by eating plant foods that have these phytochemicals that they naturally enhance the ability to repair the DNA. Is that clear so far? 3 steps. The 4th step is, I already told you, the IGF-1 levels. Remember we talked about it when we talked about the Laurent syndrome group, right? Less IGF-1, we don't need it, just keep it at check by not eating too much animal protein. That's the 4th step. Limit animal protein, limit excess IGF-1 levels, so that the tumor growth doesn't happen. Increasing fiber is key. So plant foods which are not processed has fiber, right? Anything else, if you have processed, fried onion rings, right? Fiber is not there. Any other animal protein, animal sourced foods, no fiber in them. Fiber is value for money, so to speak. Like every bite you take, there is fiber, you're getting more value. As simple as that. Every bite you take, you're adding value if there is fiber, right? Because that fiber does a lot of work in terms of gut health. I will come to that, but in terms of cancer, the hormone sensitive cancer for men, prostate cancer, that can be higher risk when there's testosterone getting exposed. For women, estrogen dependent cancers, these can be kept in check if there's enough fiber. The fiber makes sure that there is not too much of these excessive hormones coming to attack the hormones. Methionine exposure. So methionine is a type of amino acid. Amino acids are building blocks of protein. And this particular building block called methionine, we know that when we restrict that, cancer, almost like it's like taking oxygen out of a cancer cell. How do you take the oxygen for a cancer cell? Just by shutting down methionine. Methionine is on our foods, so limiting methionine foods is going to be key. That's usually animal protein. And then the last step is if somebody has cancer, one of the things we also need to do is to make sure that the cancer is not spreading to other organs. It can travel. Cancer has an innate ability to create its own roads and highways to go to the brain, go to the liver, and all kinds of travel it does. Metastasis is the name for it, technically. And how does it do it? Is by putting its own blood vessels to trap. So cancer cells can create new blood channels. Angiogenesis is the term. Genesis is creation. Angio is blood vessel. So cancer cells create new blood vessels to travel. To travel. There are foods that can stop that from happening. That's called anti-angiogenesis foods. Again, if we looked at foods that are going to stop the bull in the china shop, it actually happens to be the same foods that stops the cancer cell from putting new roads to travel. So it's kind of 7 steps to stop cancer. Any questions on this? Okay. This is about gut health. I show a map about Napoleon's army traveling, but I usually give an analogy using that. So this is Napoleon's army going into Russia's winter. Okay. This is a map done many years ago. This band, orange band, is Napoleon's army going into Russia, and the black band is the army coming back. Can you see that the black band is very thin? How much army came back after they went into Russia? This is 1 million soldiers. Each millimeter width is like 10,000 soldiers. So this band is 1 million soldiers went into Russia during winter from Napoleon's army, and they came back 10,000 soldiers, right? So the idea here is they went into a highly unsustainable, difficult environment, a winter in Russia. Similarly, our gut, if our all the millions of army of bacteria that we have in our intestines, the good bacteria, the friendly bacteria, the allies, so to speak, can be army, lingo, our allies, the bacteria in our gut, they also will die if you create a harsh environment inside of that. They need to be not in Russia's winter, they need to be in some warm paradise, right? So how do we create that is by eating fiber. The same fiber that we talked about for cancer prevention that will keep a check on excess estrogen and excess testosterone, creating breast prostate cancers. It's the same fiber that is in unprocessed, wholesome plant foods like leafy greens in the salad, vegetables that grows above the ground, some fruits, whole grains, beans, lentils, a little bit of nuts and seeds. The same fiber that is needed for these good bacteria to thrive, to be healthy, to take care of us. And why does it matter to keep the good bacteria healthy? It's because they control many of our health outcomes, how healthy we're going to be in terms of not only weight, maintaining weight and keeping away diabetes and blood pressure. It also helps with other things like inflammation that happens in the body, autoimmune diseases, even cancer. In many of these areas, the good bacteria, basically, they're like the headquarters, so to speak. They control everything going on. And so making sure that they can thrive in the right environment and not like Napoleon's army going into Russia's winter is key. Okay. Next time you're looking at a plate, remember that, so that we can feed the bacteria. Yeah. Blood pressure. So when we think about high blood pressure, we can think about different organs, heart and brain. And stroke happens when the blood pressure is high. Heart attack can happen. It's an extra load on the heart. In kidneys, we think about kidneys because kidneys regulate the sodium level in our body. So you all heard about low salt diet for blood pressure, right? Low salt diet. So that's to do with the sodium. So the body's sodium level is, if we eat a lot of salt, that's going to increase the sodium in the body. But the kidneys are there to maintain, it's like the thermostat. In the room, in the house, we have a thermostat, and we maintain the temperature at a range. Similarly, the kidneys have a thermostat for sodium level in our body. And it makes sure that your sodium level stays in a correct way so that it doesn't push your blood pressure. So in a way, if you think about it, kidneys seem to be the main organ for blood pressure control. But even beyond that, even above the kidneys, the good bacteria in our gut, we just talked about Napoleon's army, the good bacteria in our gut, that controls the kidneys' ability to regulate the sodium in our body. So once again, the friendly bacteria that depends on fiber on your plate is going to be the one that actually controls your blood pressure. So if you think about 20 years ago, if you've been to a doctor, the doctor would say talk only about salt, about blood pressure. Low salt diet was the only thing they talked about 20 years ago. Past 10, 15 years, 10 years definitely, there's a new thing called DASH diet. Have you heard of it? DASH diet. And that DASH diet is just not putting so much emphasis on the salt only, but also actually putting equal or more emphasis on fruits and vegetables and beans, which is all to do with fiber, the army surviving, and the kidneys being better handling our blood pressure. Okay? Questions on that? Cholesterol buildup is a traffic jam in the heart's blood circulation. cholesterol buildup happens over decades. Can anybody guess what is the average age in USA, the American, where the artery in the heart begins to have the first seed of blockage? If you think about remember we talked about in cancer, the first step is the broken DNA. Same way for an artery to get blocked, there is a first seed that needs to be planted for the buildup of the blockage. And can anyone guess the average age in this country when it starts? Very nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's 15. Around 15. Yeah, 15. And we know that from studies, kind of sad, but this happens. Studies that are done on autopsies, looking at arteries of the heart in Vietnam War, like any war injuries when kids are like 18 and 19, they're joining the war, they die, the autopsy is done, they look at the arteries of the heart, and you can already start to see the blockage. So we can track back to say when it would have started. And similarly, there's also studies looking at traffic crash, which are part of crime scene investigation. They will do autopsies. And we know from young kids dying and analyzing their hearts, we know that the average age in this country where the first seed of blockage in the artery is happening around 15, 14 to 16 is what, so you nailed it. And that is not genetic. We know that 98% of the heart disease is not genetic, it's exposure to things that we just started. Not mommy's fault. It's not about mom's fault. That's not going to do a real thing. It's about not having the right information at the right time. I think that's the problem. Okay, but what happens if we get a blockage? Now we know that we can actually melt. You can melt the blockage with diet, right? But the diet has to be a strict diet. So these are studies published. This is 2001. So this is not news. It's been going on for 30 years. This study shows the left anterior descending artery, a major artery in the heart that supplies the main blood flow to the heart. And you can see when they inject a dye for the angiogram test, they go through a vein, they inject a dye so that you can actually see the outline of the artery. And you can see that it starts to go well, but then it becomes very narrow how the dye is flowing. That's because all around it, there's blockage, there's gunk. It's like you're plumbing, there's just a tiny bit of water coming through because it's all gunked in the plumbing. And then this is after diet change, 32 months, plant-based, and no medications used, right? This is one anecdote. But there's more and more studies looking at larger samples showing that. This is a PET scan, positron emission tomography of a heart muscle. So this is a cut section of the heart. So you got to imagine from kind of orientation point of view. So this is like the heart is like this. Like somebody is like laying down here. They're laying down here. These are cut sections of the scans of the heart. And so you're looking at it from this point of view. Make sense? And so you're seeing there the gray zone. So red is great, good blood flow. Yellow is okay, yeah, yellow is next to that, and then gray. There is no blood flowing there. That muscle is starving, no circulation, because the artery is blocked. And here you can start to see that it's restored. It's beginning to get the blood flow, and that is 3 weeks after plant-based nutrition. So when you think about the power of food, we talked about people not getting cancer. We talked about reversing dementia. We're talking about reversing melting blocked arteries. This is not voodoo science. This is real science, data published. I have high standards for evidence in science because I studied MPH and UMass Amherst. I usually tell in my talks, one of the semesters we study when I studied my master's in public health nutrition is to learn to poke holes in research studies. So we are taught to stress test research studies. We know how to poke holes and find where it's shaky, right? So my standards are high, and when I find fascinating evidence like this, I want to share it, and that's hence the book, right? So the power of food to reverse dementia, mild stages, mind you. Advanced dementia, we have not studied it yet, so we don't know. But it can reverse blocked arteries, advanced, can reverse mild dementia, and we can make sure we don't get cancer. We just do the right thing. Right? All right. I think we're gonna go on a fast lane here to finish up. One of the things we talk about is protein. So one of the questions I always get is like, how do I get enough protein? All that we can talk about it, but the idea here is that if you do too much protein, that's a problem. If you don't eat enough protein, that's a problem. So that's kind of the bottom, right? You got to have the right balance amount of protein and eat mostly plant protein, beans and lentils and whole grains, broccoli, brown rice. They all have vegetable protein in them, right? So protein, plant protein, because they come with fiber. We need fiber. As much as possible, plant protein. So eating enough protein is key, because if you don't eat enough protein, you're going to lose your muscle mass. It's called sarcopenia. And when you have sarcopenia, your fall risk goes up. We see falls a lot on the cake. Hospital, healthcare system, you want to. Fall risk is huge. When falls are not innocuous, they are dangerous. They can kill you, right? We have, once the patient falls, there's a fracture, and then there's pneumonia, and then it's a bed sore, and then everything is downhill after that. So falls are not like light topic, so to speak, right? It's fatal. So reducing falls, one of the key things is to make sure you're not having excess body fat and you have enough muscles. So eating enough protein and making sure you're eating enough fiber and physical activity to not have excess fat. These two combination will reduce the risk of falls. But when somebody they don't have enough muscle mass, they have excess body fat, the risk of fall goes up by 260%. Right? So volume. So one of the questions I get is, how am I going to get my protein? I need to grow. The kid is growing, athletics, and all of that worry, especially when you talk about protective food that is plant predominant. That is, that's beans, lentils, vegetables, high carbohydrate. We talked about 68% calories coming from carbohydrates. So, but we have looked at many studies, and we know that there's plenty of protein. And first of all, the amount of protein we need is overestimated. In many of the things, we don't even calculate it correctly. We just assume that we need a lot. We don't. When you do the right calculation, we realize the amount of protein we need is only just enough to supply around 10% of our daily calories. So take out 2,000 calories somebody needs for a day. Just 10%, 200 calories needs to come from protein. And that's more than enough, actually, because the minimum need is 5% of your daily calories coming from protein. If you're not getting that, you're not getting enough protein. But 5% is very, very little. That it's very rare to see somebody with protein deficiency. Anyway, one of the groups we look at in terms of muscle building and physical prowess and all these macho things is gladiators, right? Gladiators not only in a Netflix show and movies, but in historical books, and how their skeletons look like when we actually study their bones, exhuming their bodies and the skeletons, and they've studied them, skeletons from the 2nd, 3rd century, right? So they've done isotope studies looking at gladiators' bones and to see where did they get their calcium from? Where did their magnesium come from? Potassium. They can do that by the isotope study of these bones. And they basically can recreate their menu that they were eating based on looking at isotope studies of different nutrients that make up the bone. And this is their menu. Their menu is barley, wheat, beans, and vegetables. Right? I'll repeat that. This is their entire menu. Barley, wheat, beans, and vegetables. And if you think about it culturally and historically, it kind of makes sense from a kind of a what was happening in that time, hierarchy and all of that. They were convicts and they were slaves, they were expendable, right? They were putting them to fight with lions and all to die, right? So they were not going to give them cakes and steaks and all the things that they were eating, the kings. So they were giving them little barley, wheat, and going eat your porridge kind of situation, and they were building their bones and being healthy, and they can go through their training. It's all about the training and having enough calories and having enough protein, carbs, and fats for the training, right? So think about it. And they got it all through this. So I mean, I try to share this, but one of the common questions still always comes up is, am I going to get enough protein? So say, look at the gladiators, right? Other things to think about is our relationship. I mean, the book is not all about food. It's also about other elements that helps us to be healthy, including how we look at our own relationship with ourselves. How do we relate with others? How do we relate with higher than, spiritual aspects and all of that. So self-care, coping skills, mindfulness, attitude, all of that matters. Relationship with others, quality versus quantity. There's been a lot of studies looking at happiness, general well-being, and it has shown that it's the quality of relationships that we have, not the quantity of relationships. So having 1 million followers in social media and never seeing them and is not going to be helpful, as opposed to you just have 2 friends, you meet them for like a coffee once a month regularly, and that improves your health, right? Yes, there you go. Whatever you're doing is good. And then anything, celestial relation, anything higher than self, whether it's nature for you, spirituality, faith, all of that helps as well. Having a sense of purpose is key, and it's been shown to improve well-being. And there's all kinds of definitions for everything. So sense of purpose is having a sense of direction, goals, and seeing meaning in life. Basically, getting up. What do you get up in the morning? What are you looking forward to for that day? It matters. It improves health. Actually, it's been shown. This was published in 2020, looking at sense of purpose in life and showing that it lowers the wear and tear in the body, which is when we talked about oxidant stress, the high energy molecule that breaks the DNA, oxidative stress. It reduces that. It reduces inflammation in the body. It balances your blood sugar, reduces heart attack risk, reduces dementia risk, and reduces risk of death. So some of the I have 30 recipes in the book. Some of you may have already seen the book, but it's multi-cuisine. All kinds of recipes are in there: breakfast, lunch, and snacks and desserts. Some of the examples. So you take like a traditional food and swap it for a protein that is different, like in this case tofu, high complex protein, and everything else has a lot of tons of fiber, including the tofu has fiber. And it's a poke bowl. So it's like you set up like a bar. It's really fun. Something in. Traditionally, this dish, which is from Hawaii, I think the poke bowl will have either meat or fish in there. Almond with kale, mushroom, and chickpea flour. Chickpea flour complex. In the menstrual health book, I have 7 recipes in there for a 1-week meal plan for women to use so that they get enough nutrients to have a comfortable menstrual health without the physical discomfort, but not only that, but also the sleep, the anxiety, the mood changes, all of that coming from. So one of the recipes is this with a little bit of modification. And bean burgers, I have a red kidney bean burger. I got carried away with the fixings, as you can see, but the burger is hiding here. You can see. There is no sugar added in this recipe. It's sweetened with Ripe bananas, ripe bananas, and raisins. And have moves, berries. So, any questions so far? I'm just gonna move on to, 2 or 3 slides on the new book, and then I'll wrap up on that. Yes.
How do you know how much protein you should have as a person? Like they usually recommend every meal you should have protein, you know.
Yeah, good question. So the amount of protein, as I mentioned, I think the one that I use is understanding how much calories you need for the day. And then making sure you're eating protein that supplies around 10% of those calories. So there are calorie calculators that are free online. I generally, from my when I work with patients, I use Mayo Clinic calorie calculator, free online. Just Google it. So use a Mayo Clinic calorie calculator, and then go in there, and it'll ask you for your age, your height, your weight, and what level of activity you do, right? So you put in all of that, and you might enter your current weight in there. And it's going to pop out a number that will be saying, this is the calories you need to eat daily for the level of activity that you enter, that you do, and for the weight you enter. So let's say somebody is trying to lose weight, right? They are excess body weight, but they put in their weight for the calorie count, and it shows some calories. Let's say it's 2,200 calories, 2,400 calories. In this person who's trying to lose weight, they need to, whatever calories came out, they need to take out 400 from that, subtract 400. So if it gave 2,400 calories, this person entered their weight, they are trying to lose weight, they need to take out 400 calories. So from 2,400, they need to come down to 2,000 calories, and that is their caloric need for the day in order to actually lose weight. So now we know how much calories they need. So we need to understand 10% of that of protein. So 10% of 2,000 is 200. Take out a 0, 200. And so 200 calories need to come from protein. Each 1 gram of protein gives 4 calories. Every gram of protein gives 4 calories. So you divide the 200 by 4, you get 50. 200 by 4 is 50. So that person needs 50 grams. So I know it's a long calculation, but basically understand your calories. Understand what is 10% of that. And then whatever number you get, divide that by 4. You get the grams of protein. That is right in the smack middle of the 5 to 15% of calories coming from protein. The 10% is easy to calculate too. If you think about it, you just calculate in mind, 10%, take a 0 out. If somebody is an athlete, somebody is bodybuilder, whatever, they're aiming for more protein, or they are coming out of what we call in healthcare catabolic state. They were in ICU for like a month. They were in intensive care unit for a month. They lost weight. They are deconditioned. They need to build back. Or it's somebody is an athlete. They need to make sure they get enough protein to keep their training going. In that person, you could go up to from 10% of daily calories coming from protein, you can go up to 15%. Pushing beyond 15%. Sorry if it is making you dizzy. I need to go back to one of the early slides. You go back to more than 15% of the daily calories coming from protein. We are starting to overdo on your protein, no matter where the protein comes from, whether it is animal or plant. It's gonna bring the bull in the china shop to the china dish together to break it. So don't over, and then it's extra work for the kidneys. Kidney has to deal with the protein. The liver has to deal with the protein. So, all right, we need to do this. Close your eyes, make me busy. Okay, here we go. All right. So that's on the protein. Did I answer your question? All right, any other questions? Yes.
Those plant-based protein drinks, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, what are we trying to achieve with that? The question, but I'm asking you a question, like, what is your goal? What if a person says, is it useful? And then I'm like, what are you trying to achieve with that?
Get a sufficient amount of protein. As a woman of a certain age, I've been advised to have more protein. What you said,
Bones and muscles. Yeah, and I actually recently looked at a study and I put it on Instagram. It actually doesn't work. Most of the protein powders out there, the International Society for Sports Nutrition, which is kind of the top organization looking at sports nutrition. They have a journal, scientific journal. They publish articles all the time. So they published one in January of this year, and they looked at 6,129 research studies that looked at the question that you just asked. Do protein drinks work? And out of that 6,129, they threw out everything except 75 research because everything else was junk research. And out of the 75, they found that by themselves, protein powders do not improve endurance, muscle strength, or recovery time from exercise, which is a metric of how good the person is. So they don't work. Is there a role for it? There is a role for it in short periods. If somebody is, I don't know, if somebody is coming from gut surgery, like they had a gut surgery done, they can't, eat like fiber foods, they need a transition period where they need to make sure they get enough protein, easy to digest liquid form, then yes, right? But other than that, doesn't work. So, but culinary wise, if you like it, just I like the smoothie with that, it's fine. But it's always about what are you trying to achieve with that. So 1 second, I'm going to come to you. So get down another question.
That was one of my questions as well, but I also had a question about fish
Yeah.
in the diet as opposed to the meats.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get this question, especially being on Cape Cod and years around there. But I will, we'll have to say that less is more. Less is more. All animal protein, from a biological point of view, what the cells are dealing with. It doesn't matter whether it flies, whether it swims, whether it runs. It's the same. Like for us, contextually, it's different. From a cellular level, what the proteins do, like methionine. We talked about methionine. So at those levels, they're all the same. They're all the same bucket: fish and chicken and white meat and red meat. So yeah, less is more.
And dairy.
Yeah, dairy is again same thing. They're all the same. Yeah, dairy and eggs. Yeah, they're all animal protein, right? So from a biochemical point of view, from how the cells are dealing with it point of view, they all behave the same. The structure is the same. The shape and how they look for us is different. But inside our body, it does the same job. So yeah, so any animal source, whether it's eggs, dairy, cheese, milk, all of that have the same behavior, and all of them, fortunately, have zero fun. Which is kind of what I feel is a big miss there, which is because for me, every bite I take, I'm looking for value, and that's fiber. So in other words, like if somebody says, how much should I eat fish? How much should I eat chicken? It's about what are you trying to achieve, right? What's your goal? There's nothing. I'm not going to tell what is your goal, and then how much you can do that depends upon how much fiber you're trying to fit in within a week, within a day, because the stomach has only so much space, so we got to figure out how much value you're getting from each. Okay.
Well, I just really had something to say about the protein.
Yes,
I do some food demonstrations, plant-based food demonstrations, and it's always the protein comes up every time. And I think you told me once that, the carbs are what is giving us energy. Okay, so you eat carbs in the morning for breakfast before you go work out, and then you eat the protein after you're active to help rebuild the muscle. You're not going to get big muscles from eating protein for breakfast. It's complete myth.
Yes.
And just this obsession with protein actually, really started to drive me crazy, because I feel like I'm trying to shout from the rooftop and no one's listening, because people have been so conditioned in the West, the protein is the be all and end all of everything important for our bodies, and it's actually so damaging to eat too much protein.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Anka is does demonstrations here, teaching here, online, other in Sandwich. Where are you teaching in Sandwich?
The Center for Active Living.
Center for Active Living in Sandwich. Go and check out Anka's food demonstrations, education sessions, food for life instructor for Kid Car, certified in plant-based nutrition from Cornell, all kinds of stuff.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, and so yeah, before workout, carbohydrates, after workout, protein, plant protein. Thank you for reminding me about that. And from a fuel perspective, we talk about fuel efficiency in cars, right? Yeah, what's your fuel efficiency in the car? Carbohydrates have the best fuel efficiency for us, for muscles. For protein, I did one of my reels and I was telling it's like getting for trying to get energy from protein is like it's like getting a high interest loan, a very high interest loan. So you got to put money to get that money. So the body has to work hard to get energy from protein. Body has to shift to a different physiological mechanism process, and that requires more energy to get energy from protein. But carbohydrates, easy peasy, just comes in, you can digest it, break it down, get fuel out of it. I'm going to come to you. I know you're asking a question. I won't forget. So, so the efficiency wise, carbs are better. Protein, you got to put more energy to get energy from it. So, as you mentioned, protein is good for rebuilding after you break the muscle. Not literally, but we break down muscles when we work out, right? We do activity, run, walk, whatever we're doing. Muscles get broken down. They need to put it back together, and we need protein after workout. Yes.
Question about
I have a-
stress, if you could help. I've been under an inordinate amount of stress. I was hit with a ton of bricks 4 weeks ago tomorrow. My husband of 40 years, who had Alzheimer's for 4.5 years, all of a sudden was rushed out of our home in Comaquid on Monday morning and died at the Cape Cod Hospital on Tuesday morning of Alzheimer's. I eat a good diet. I exercise like crazy. I keep a good life. But I'll be very honest with you, as strong as I am, I've succumbed to the stress. It's been very, very difficult. Are there any food products, oils, or herbs that I could add into my diet to get through this horrendous roller coaster that just took off over?
Yeah,
Because I was told by the Brigham in December that, well, I probably had 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years to probably live. Was on several of the new drugs that was, keeping him just so, but it was because of the shock of the no notice whatsoever.
yeah.
No notice. It was a 12 o'clock ambulance ride from Comaquid to Cape Cod Hospital, and I called the next morning, Mrs. LeBray, your husband is dead. And I'll be honest with you, I'm having a hard time dealing with it.
Yeah,
And that's why I specifically came here today to find out.
I'm very sorry to hear your loss. I do think this requires a one-on-one conversation. I will make time for it at the end of this to talk about some ways for you to navigate this.
That would be lovely. Thank you very much, Dr. Sid.
You're welcome. I appreciate you showing up despite all of that. Yeah.
Does eating soy increase estrogen in a bad way in the body?
Good question. It does not. It actually helps to prevent breast cancer. It helps to prevent ovarian cancer. It helps to prevent prostate cancer. It actually, it has a weak estrogen in it. Soy has a plant estrogen in it. They are weak. It's just a perfect scenario. They are weak enough that they are plant estrogen. So they mimic the estrogen molecules enough to go on and latch on to the estrogen receiving docket station, so to speak, in breast cells or ovarian cells. So we have receiving entities. The best way I can describe is, have you seen like satellite images in space videos where the satellite will go and attach to a docket station, right? So the docket is like the receptors we have on our cells. Prostate cells have them, ovarian cells have them. They're waiting to receive the estrogen, or in prostate, they're waiting to receive the testosterone. And when they come and latch onto it, they can stimulate the growth of the prostate in testosterone, or breast cancer in estrogen. So in other words, the satellite needs to come and attach to the docket stations. Estrogen is like the satellite. Soy has weak estrogens, which is also like the satellites. So they mimic the satellites, that they actually go and attach to the receptors when you have too much estrogen floating around. But they are weak estrogens that they actually don't stimulate the growth of the tumor. So it's the perfect scenario you can expect. If you need something like a dummy, you need a dummy satellite. We just need to go and block all these docking stations so that the dangerous estrogens, excess estrogens, don't come and stimulate the breast cancer. Plant estrogens from soy is the best nature-made solution to have a weak enough estrogen that it won't stimulate the prostate and breast cells, ovarian cells for cancer, but enough to mimic the structure of the real estrogen that it can actually sit on these docker stations, receptors and block. So, way to go.
And how much?
2 servings of soy. So soy every day. We don't want to overdo it in the only sense if you have a thyroid problem, underactive thyroid, you're taking a thyroid pill, don't overdo on the soy. That's one. But what is overdoing the soy? Like more than 2 servings a day is too much if you have a thyroid problem, especially. But I don't know, maybe 2 servings, maybe in Japan they do, I don't know.
Edamame beans count, right?
Yeah. More than 2, up to 2 servings is great. And if you have a thyroid problem, if you don't have a thyroid problem, you can go even more than that. There are processed soy, we don't want them. There's wholesome soy products which we want. So the top 5 wholesome soy products are edamame beans, which you find in Stop and Shop and all, they little top with the green beans, you see it, put that in your salad, thumbs up. Edamame beans, tofu, tempeh, which is fermented tofu, good for the army in your gut, soy milk, and soy, so other soy, like roasted soy nuts and all of that, so any other form of the edamame beans. Those are the healthy soy. They processed other pig meats and all these things are risky. I wouldn't go there. If you have a party, you can do it, but generally. So that's on the soy. Did I answer your questions?
Great, thank you.
Good. Right. Great.
Almond milk,
What is the purpose?
just for getting protein and.
Yeah, soy has the highest protein. Like amount of protein for a cup of soy milk is way higher than
And
almond.
calcium as well.
Yeah, so if you like the almond milk taste, that's a different purpose. If you like the thickness of it, that's a different story. But purely from an amount of protein for every cup, soy has much more, 10 times more than almond.
But we're not one, two, three.
Exactly, you're right. So it's all about how much you're budgeting for the whole day. Yeah.
This might be from left field, but I'm just dying to know what your thoughts about the GLP-1 drugs.
I am so glad you asked that. And I was just working on it for another video I was doing recently. So, good question when you talk about protein, because it just so happens. There was a study that just got published, and there were now 4 researchers that's been published, looking at these weight loss drugs, the GLP-1 agonist weight loss drugs. Now, this is going to go beyond this. Sorry. So the GLP-1 weight loss drugs. Do you know about them? Have you heard of them? You're living and breathing and watching any kind of media, you're going to see the weight loss drugs. Okay, they're out there. Do you know where they were inspired from? Yeah, I'm not asking the question. Anyway, Do you know what the Gila monster lizard? Okay.
So you're saying yes.
So there is in the New Mexico region, the southwest region, there is this little lizard, which is orange and black, yellow color. It's called the Gila monster lizard. It's not a big monster lizard, it's small. The interesting thing they found was this lizard eats only in binges. It's actually a carnivore. It eats a little rats. But it'll eat whenever it can, and then for majority of the year, it will stop. It won't eat. And it has a perfect balance. The body is adapted to it for millions of years, and it's just it has a ways of limiting food intake for periods of time, and it's adapted to it. And they found that it's actually a venomous lizard, so its saliva is venom, and so the venom has something called actionable. It is a molecule that does that for the lizard to make sure it curbs its appetite and it doesn't eat for months, right? And so that venom in the saliva of the lizard is what inspired the weight loss drug GLP-1. They're not the same. They didn't take the saliva and do it. They looked at the molecular structure and they can make that structure in a lab. So they mimic 53%. So the human GLP-1 drugs that are out there, they resemble 53% of the original acetylcholine in the venom of the lizard. That's one part. The second part I want to say is that we are now finding it's a new drug. So it's fairly weird. We don't have much experience with it in healthcare. So now they looked at a year of experience. For 1 year, what's happening with those individuals who are on it? They're finding that 1 in 4 of them, nearly 25% of them, have protein deficiency, iron deficiency, calcium deficiency, vitamin B12, vitamin D, magnesium, potassium deficiency, and they're losing their lean mass, which is their muscle and bone mass. So their loss of lean mass, how this is happening, and nearly 22.4% of them by the end of the year, which is 1 in 4 nearly, which is been talked about a lot in health now, because we as prescribers, we professionals who prescribe it, we don't have guidelines on how to monitor for their protein and so iron level and calcium, like we do for bypass surgeries for the weight loss. The bypass surgeries they do for weight loss. There is protocol by all these authorities, guidelines for us on, okay, check their iron and this for every 2 months, whatever. We don't have it. This all got pushed in quickly. They got released. It became a big hype. All the celebrities were pitching it. And so it's like almost like, we do the thing and then you figure out what's happening. And then now we find out that's going on. And I just put a video out on Instagram on that. But I was also looking at another question, which is going to come in my next Instagram video, is I was looking at the lizard and looking at what's happening with humans. And I'm saying, why does a lizard don't have protein deficiency and iron deficiency, right? Same molecule. But then it's actually not the same molecule. It only resembles 53% of the molecule. And also, the lizard is adapted to it for millions of years. And so the body physiology, so actually there was one study that's published looking at the lizard itself. They found that their digestion of protein and carbohydrates, the efficiency of the digestion is regulated very differently over years. It is adapted differently. So it's one of those examples where you take a molecule, you just take one piece of a puzzle and put it as a solution, but you don't bring the entire package solutions. And so our body might take, I don't know how many years to adapt to these drugs to be able to digest protein more efficiently, to not have protein deficiency. But currently we are at a place where these individuals are at a higher risk for protein deficiency. Yeah.
Can you talk about hot flash?
One question, and then that's a good question. And then I'm going to go over 3 more slides. Hot flashes. So with regard to diet, hot flashes, there are studies, some are showing promise, some are showing not so great promise for soy products. I just talked about the top 5 healthy soy products that it could help with hot flashes. It's kind of a mixed bag right now. Some say it's works, some say it doesn't. So that means that it will work for some people, it doesn't work for others. Maybe it will. So that's a thought. Other than that, actually, believe me or not, mind body has a big role in that, the mind body connection for hot flashes. So cognitive behavioral therapy and stress reduction methods, mindfulness methods, helps to reduce hot flashes. And then there is a very interesting study that I was researching and I put out a video on that is, the essential oils that are out there on this smell thing that keeps the good aroma in the room. I always think that there's just some, it's not. It's good, smells good, but I don't know if it's scientifically valid. I have high standards for science. So finally, researchers are kicking the tires to check out these essential oils. What are they about scientifically? So there was one very good study, randomized controlled trial, dummy and then essential oils. They studied 2 oils, bergamot oil and lavender oil, and they rub it in the forearm 3 times, twice a day. Follow them with a very scientific, rigorous method of analyzing hot flashes. So there are question and answer tools we use to assess sleep. So Pittsburgh Sleep Index. There is another couple of tools. They measure hot flashes and other menopausal symptoms, and then anxiety symptoms. And they found that compared to the placebo group, the dummy group, they actually helped to reduce hot flashes, improve sleep, and reduce anxiety. No, it's a new study. So, but food-wise, the only thing that I know is soy. It's a hit or miss. It doesn't work for everybody. But if you eat wholesome soy, what are you going to lose? You can prevent breast cancer, right? Or prostate cancer from eggs. Yeah.
I went plant-based when I was 6 years ago when I was in Perry, and I have never lost any actually 6 years.
There you go.
So maybe might be lucky, but no, I just been completely plant-based. I haven't had any dairy. I also don't drink alcohol and stuff. I mean, maybe I'm just lucky, but I want to think. I like to believe it because of my lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm sure it helps.
So you are starting to add more soy at the time when did you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I mix all different plants. I do sometimes almond and soy. I even like red marmite. I think when you cut out meat, you naturally kind of start eating something sweet.
Great, thank you for sharing. So we're wrapping up soon. This is the menstrual health. Honestly, I started working on this is not my practice area. I'm an internal medicine doctor. The last delivery I did for a baby was 33 years ago. Okay, that was part of my training, and that was the last time I had to do the medicine. So I'm an internal medicine doctor. I never went to medicine. But recently, I'm getting requests from people who are following me in social media and all. They want to know about menstrual health and diet. So I started digging into it. And I thought I'm just going to do one video with the social media, but it ended up being a book, and I just released it. The information was so fascinating for me that I started to look at it from different angles, and I found there is a solution that's being missed out, a nutritional diet solution for people with premenstrual syndrome, who get all kinds of physical symptoms, sleep symptoms, mood symptoms, and premenstrual period, like the 5 days prior to menstruation. And then there is a very severe form of premenstrual syndrome called PMDD. The worst thing you can imagine in terms of how it debilitates the person, the girl or the woman, and makes them suicidal, makes them so debilitated that many of them are suicidal. So if there's a food solution for that, we need to give it to them. And that's why I'm making this available today for free for Women's Health, Women's Day, but it's also going to be a whole week. And when it goes out in Kindle, it'll only be ebook, and it's going to be like a 99 cents. I won't make money out of it. We know that based on how much the authors get in when they sell books. It is really something to put it out there because it was just I started looking at it like a side project. Somebody asked me about it. So what I found there, one of the fascinating things I found is women with PMS. We do a test in very, we don't do it routinely, but we do a test on checking their eyes, and the test is called saccadic eye movement. It's like a rapid eye movement test. So you ask the woman to follow the pen on her finger, and we'll move the pen this way. It's like, watching a tennis ball, right? Going this way. But you can't turn the head. Like in tennis, you will turn the head. But here you don't turn the head, you're just turning your eyeball to kind of follow the pen, the finger. And we do it fast. So the ability to keep up the speed in monitoring, in moving the gaze to the finger, that is measured. That's a standard speed with which normal individuals can keep up, alternating the gaze when a finger moves from a 3 feet distance. It's called saccadic eye movement test. In women with PMS, they fail this test. They cannot do this test. They slow down. They will slow down, most of them, compared to women who don't have premenstrual syndrome. Fascinating, isn't it? Okay, hold the thought. Come to jugglers. In jugglers, even if they're even if you're not a professional, let's say, is any of you, I don't want to assume, any of you are jugglers here, right? So let's say you decide, I want to take up juggling. I want to, for whatever reason, I want to, do some party tricks, whatever coming up, I'm going to take up some juggling. Let's say you go for a juggling train 1 month or 2 months. And let's say you originally you had a stroke in the past, let's say, you didn't have it. And you had a stroke in a visual area, in the area that controls your vision, your eye movement. Lo and behold, you go for the juggler training, and then your vision is improved now. So jugglers' brains shows that the areas of the brain that controls eye coordination and movement and vision, that parts of the brains, they enhance, they grow, they put new wirings, connections in place, and their brain can actually, to put it like how we would know, they get a superpower. Their brain becomes a superpower after this, when they're at baseline compared to others when you do a training. So the ability of the brain to change and enhance, become a superpower, is called neuroplasticity. The term is neuroplasticity. We never thought, when I trained 30 years ago in med school in India, the textbooks would say, brain is the only tissue which will never recover. That's what we were taught. Not only in India, we read the books that are used here in medical schools, same books. We were told, brain when it's damaged, it's done. Liver when it's damaged, it will grow. You have a gut problem, it will grow. This new cells will come in. But once the brain gets a stroke, that is lost. That's what we were told. Now we know that it's not true. Brain cells can grow again. It's called neuroplasticity. And what the jugglers are doing, they are able to enhance the power of that parts of the brain. And it happens, it's the same part of the brain that doesn't work well for women with PMS. But the women with premenstrual syndrome, they cannot do the rapid eye test. It's the same parts of the brain that these jugglers are improving. And it is also the same part of the brain where our calming nerve signal, we have nerve chemicals that excite us and make us like go and chase and do all kinds of stuff. But we also have calming nerve signals. Like GABA, I don't know if you heard of it. GABA, there's some supplements, GABA supplements. Gamma amino butyric acid, GAB, GABA. So go look at it. GABA is our calming nerve signal. Anytime the brain fires GABA, person will go to sleep. Person is calm. Anxiety is not there. So the parts of the brain that the jugglers improve, the parts of the brain where it's not firing well for women with PMS, it's the same parts of the brain where a lot of the GABA works there a lot. So now we know why women with premenstrual syndrome feel anxious, they have headache, they can't sleep, their mood swings are there. All of it is due to the GABA being off for them. But if only they have enough magnesium in their diet, if only they have enough magnesium in their diet, the magnesium will make sure that the GABA works well in that parts of the brain for them so that they don't get the PMS symptoms and they don't get the PMDD depression and become suicidal. So a lot of it's to do with magnesium. A little bit is to do with the B1 vitamin. The data on that is a little bit shaky. I'm not convinced totally. But the magnesium is slam dunk. And we know that I talked about all of this basically. I just told you, can I reveal the calm of storm during premenstrual period? Yes. So we know that magnesium is the key. Every additional serving of nuts, seeds, and legumes, which are the highest sources of magnesium. Every additional serving of nuts, seeds, and legumes reduces the risk of mild, moderate, severe PMS by 40%. Every serving. So if you have 2 servings, the risk drops by 80%. How about that? While a single serving increase of sugar, sweets, and all of that increases the risk. So if you think about, I mean, I'm not generalizing or judging anybody out there, but think about generally today's teenage girls when they're getting into menstruation. How many of them are getting the full servings of nuts and seeds and legumes and making sure they get enough magnesium? How many of them are eating like sugary things and they're, the different drinks they have? I got the names of them, but they're friends and all of that. So they get into situations where they can get PMS. Yes.
So can you just talk a little bit about the benefits of getting the magnesium from the whole food versus from the
Correct. Excellent. That is the 4th chapter in my book. That's basically about why not supplements. The problem with supplements in magnesium is that magnesium comes in different forms. It comes in oxide, glycinate, or different types of salts. Body, when it comes as a pill, and the dosing, we have never mastered the dosing with regard to how much dosing a person needs. There's so many individual variations. The studies are now showing that magnesium pills are not effective when somebody has deficiency, like when there's somebody like this kind of individuals who may not be eating enough magnesium, the supplements don't work. So because the dosing is a challenge, different salts of magnesium works differently for different individuals. It's very hard to prescribe. Like we know, like in medicine, we know how to prescribe, like Lipitor, whatever, right? We know an antibiotic, penicillin. We know this much dose works for this much body weight person and all. We have no idea about that. Nothing has been studied. So it's like a wine or something. So yeah, getting it through whole foods is the best way. There are 7 recipes in the book. I am going to move that here. You see this QR code? This is called a QR code. You probably know this by now. You know that? You bring your phone to that. Bring your phone camera to this. And it'll open up a link, an yellow link in your phone image. Just touch that. It'll download the book to your phone. And then you can share. There's a symbol for sharing. It looks like a 3 dots here type. So you share that to your email or wherever you want to send it. So it's available free. It has 7 recipes in it. Each recipe. So the daily we need 360 milligrams of magnesium. The daily need for teenagers. Oh, this is an interesting thing I didn't tell you. Teen girls, the need for magnesium for teen girls is higher, 360 milligrams, compared to the magnesium need for an adult woman, which is 320 milligrams. So we think about it, it's perfect storm, right? Their need is high, 360 milligrams in teenage. They're not eating, enough magnesium-rich foods, and they're eating sugary things. Of course, they're going to get penis and puberty. So, 360 milligrams. Each of the recipe I have in that. Every serving, each single serving in each of the recipe will give you more than 360 milligrams at least for the day. So it's a 7-day meal plan. So the idea is I'm not giving like 30-day meal. It's a quick job, a quick side project idea. But basically, you have enough for 7 days to cover during the premenstrual period, but also to build on it and build something. If you include one of them every day for 7 days and repeat it every week, throughout the year, you're getting enough magnesium. And that's going to help you not only for, like if you're saying, I'm menopause, periods are done for me. Why do I need it? You can still benefit from eating that recipe because it has magnesium and it's going to help you in many ways. Sleep, sleep and all of that.
The magnesium glycinate that you spoke about, I tried and I really had very odd dreams.
Yeah, it works in the brain for sure.
Dreams, very.
That's exactly the problem. When you do it so the body can absorb a lot. In another person, they'll say, it didn't touch me. So very hard to regulate. But if you do it in a food form, body knows how to take it. So I'll stop there. I think that is pretty much the end. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, you can go to my website. You can punch in your questions there. If you want to follow me on Instagram, there's all kinds of stuff there. And if you're dying to buy the book, I'll be here.